Wonderful event today. Thank you, Gabby. So we're very excited to have all of you here and to have this incredible panel here to talk about this very important issue, addressing homelessness through community-driven solutions. This is something that comes up a lot in our work, people thinking about this issue, thinking about how they can address this issue. And so we're very, very thrilled and honored to be hosting this event with these very inspiring and high impact speakers today. So I'm looking forward to getting to that shortly. I do just want to take a quick moment before we jump into the event to share a little bit more on what Grapevine is and what this event series is all about. This is a bi-monthly speaker series featuring leading thinkers, practitioners, and industry experts. And it's offered across all of the giving circles on the Grapevine platform and across all locations. So it's really an opportunity to connect with a wide variety of people within the Giving Circle movement, if you are part of one of our groups, but also get some exposure to it for the first time and learn a bit more about the community and about some of the topics that the community is interested in. So do continue to share in the chat. Thank you for saying hello, letting us know where you're dialing in from, and feel free to use that throughout the session. We really like to have that dialogue going, and we often see people making connections in the chat. So yeah, keep that going throughout. And then just briefly, Grapevine. So Grapevine, we power Giving Circles. We're the only platform that is really dedicated to this Giving Circle movement that provides groups not only with an online home and community for their leaders and members, but also all of the infrastructure, the donation and granting infrastructure, the community engagement and collaboration tools. So all of those things to help you start and run a Giving Circle, as well as the wraparound things like trainings, events, community support. So we like you to think of us as your partner to help you get involved in and really engage in the Giving Circle movement in whatever way makes sense for you. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is share a little bit more about our event. It was striking to me as we were preparing for this event that an estimated 6 million people experience homelessness in the US each year, and that 1 out of every 2 Americans is just 1 paycheck away from not being able to afford their rent. We also know that 82% of Americans believe that the US should be doing more to prevent homelessness. So there's this broader question, right? What is preventing us from addressing this issue in a real and effective way? So our conversation today will outline how and why community-based work and advocacy is at the heart of addressing the homelessness crisis, and the scope of the problem, while it can feel daunting, how we can take heart in some of these community-centric models like Giving Circles, and how those can bring hope and be a real opportunity for us to drive collective change as a community doing this together. So with that, I want to introduce our incredible speakers who have so much more to share on this topic. First, Kevin F. Adler is a social entrepreneur, sociologist, and author. He has served as the founder and CEO of Miracle Messages, an award-winning nonprofit that helps people experiencing homelessness across the United States. And as of yesterday, as we just learned, he is now the founder in residence of that organization, so he can share a little bit more on that. But Kevin is also the best-selling author of When We Walk By, which is Publishers Weekly, described as a must-read for anyone interested in solving the problem of homelessness. Our second speaker is Marcia Hall. She is the founder of Mr. Bubbles, a nonprofit that provides mobile showers to those experiencing homelessness. She has worked in the homelessness arena for over 16 years at Metropolitan Ministries in Tampa. And throughout the years, she has helped the homeless by finding a job, housing, and other social services to help them back into self-sufficiency. So it's no surprise that the motto for Mr. Bubbles is, "I see you and I care you." More information on Marcia as she shares more throughout. I'm sure she'll share more on her organization. And Kelly Cobb is the VP of Giving at Bombas. So in her role at Bombas, Kelly leads the company's mission to support individuals facing housing insecurity by donating a top needed, thoughtfully designed item for every item purchased. Additionally, she engages the Bombas team in regular volunteer opportunities that furthers the company's connection to the mission and to individuals who are currently unhoused. I am also very grateful to Kelly and Bombas because recently Bombas partnered with us to donate 10,000 pairs of socks to 10 different nonprofits that are addressing homelessness, which were selected by Grapevine Giving Circles. One of those was Marcia Hall's organization, Mr. Bubbles. So you can see how we're all connected here. But thank you all once again for being with us. We're so thrilled to have your various perspectives and experience here on this topic. Okay, so enough from me. To get us started, I'd love to start with you, Kevin. Your book outlines how and why homelessness in America is solvable. And I'm wondering why you think these solutions aren't being enacted and why it is that we are in a homelessness crisis at this point, if it is solvable. So can you start by talking a little bit more about the current state of housing instability and how you think we got here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great to be here with you, Emily, and team at Grapevine. Love who here's a fan of the Giving Circles? Come on, this is such an amazing piece. I see the hands going up. Y'all are raising your hands, hearts everywhere, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Marcia and Kelly. Homelessness is at some level a policy choice. There's a time in the world where there's countries that have very little homelessness. The United States is not one of those countries right now, but we'll get through it. But we have a lot of work to do. We have a nationwide shortage of about 7 to 8 million affordable housing units to meet current demand. If you look at the fair market value of rental units across the country, there's over 3,000 counties in the United States. There's not a single county where a hardworking person earning the federal minimum wage can afford a two-bedroom apartment at the fair market value. And there's less than 1% of counties where that same hardworking person can afford a one-bedroom apartment. So we have a tremendous housing crisis across the country. I think we've also, in trying to address homelessness, at times we've had a either or approach. We've said we need to build permanent supportive housing or shelters. And unfortunately, permanent supportive housing can take a long time to build. It can be very costly. It's a gold standard, but we also need to build housing of all different types all across the spectrum. Transitional housing, tiny homes, things of that sort. And of course, all of us play a role in that. You cannot be for ending homelessness and against building housing in your community, in your neighborhood. You can only pick one or the other. So that's kind of the housing piece, some of the cost piece. But in my book, When We Walk By, I describe homelessness as perhaps the most intersectional issue of our time. And we think about all the systems that are broken that lead to homelessness. Talk about housing, of course, but we also have to talk about the criminal justice system, where there's a revolving door between people who are incarcerated and falling into homelessness. And then if you're homeless, it's illegal to be homeless in half of American cities. So you end up back in the incarceration system. We also have to talk about mental and behavioral health systems and the lack of investment in treatment, recovery programs. We did deinstitutionalization, but we never invested in the kind of recovery programs that are needed all across the country. We have an opioid crisis nationwide among housed people and unhoused people. And I think we also have to talk about foster care. In the United States right now, here's a stat that I discovered while doing the research for my book, I'll never forget. 1 out of every 3 young people who age out of foster care will experience homelessness by the time they're 25, 26 years old. And among African American young people, that number goes up to 60%. 60% of young people who age out of foster care will experience homelessness. And that's just the systems piece of homelessness. There's also this other system beyond kind of the government systems, the policy systems that I talk about in the book, which is our human systems. How do we see people? Do we see people experiencing homelessness as problems to be solved or as people to be loved? I was so touched hearing in the introduction, Marcia's mission and motto is, I see you. That is not how we often look at our unhoused neighbors. We see people as problems, not people. There's stigma, there's shame associated with homelessness. We have notions of rugged individualism, pull yourself up by the bootstraps in our country. And if you're poor, let alone you're experiencing homelessness, Does that mean you're deservedly poor? Was that an individual failing versus a system failing? And finally, and I know we'll talk more about this at center in my work at Miracle Messages, is this idea of what we call relational poverty as an overlooked form of poverty. So isolation, loneliness, disconnection, and the stigma and shame that often accompanies homelessness. As one unhoused person said to me early in the pandemic, you don't need to teach me about social distancing. That's my life already. And so the work that I think is to be done is both at a systems government policy level, but also a hearts and mind, how we regard our neighbors relational level.
Thank you, Kevin, for that powerful context setting. Very helpful. Marcia, I'd love to turn to you. You've shared that experiencing some of these challenges firsthand is something you've gone through growing up in low-income housing in West Tampa with your mother and two siblings. And so I'm curious, from your view, what contributes to ongoing housing instability from what you've seen?
Well, like Kevin said, which he said a lot, that I believe in as well. But as you stated, there is always and has always been the unfairness of different people, groups of people. I can recall being, a child in the low income part of this city, is that I was prejudged just simply because I lived in a certain place, and other elements involved in that, but not having the resources directly in my path on a daily basis left me liking. And so I had to seek out the resources that I needed, which was education, looking for a job training, and things of that nature. And that's where I think we still need to go back to, is training, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And it's a true statement. But training not to get a career, but training to get survival living skills. And that's where I started. I went to what they call a training school or technical school, and got a skill first. And then I proceed to be employed because of those skills. I believe if we go back to that a little bit, pushing that, college is great. I went to college, finished, thank God for that. But to, like Kevin say, it's going to take a while to build affordable housing. So what do we do while these families are on the streets on a daily basis? Matter of fact, as I was traveling from the office to my home, I saw a family at a bus stop, a husband and wife, boyfriend or girlfriend. I don't know what their personal relationships, but it was a male and a female, and three small kids sitting on the bus stop with all their possessions. What could have been happening to them that brought them to that point that they found themselves on the streets today? Well, I'm quite sure one of them was lack of income, or the lack of, or just a small amount of income they may be possibly receiving right now. And because, like Kevin said, we all know rent is going high no matter what city, state we live in now. It's across the board. Income is slowing. Affordable housing is no longer existing because it is so filled up with so many people that didn't think they will be in that condition or need that assistance. So we are almost like have to catch up with the need, because it's getting stronger and the face of the homeless is changing. Like Kevin said, we used to think, or the preceding of people being on drugs or mental or lack of this or laziness or whatever stigma we have grown up with, that our previous generations have told us, it's not so true at this time. I talk with the homeless even through Mr. Bubbles and through my job at Metropolitan, is that a lot of them have education. They just didn't have the income to stay in their apartment now, or they didn't have the resources after they lost their jobs, and things of that nature. It's changing drastically from the time I started helping out in the community in outreach settings to now. It's changed a lot. And so we as nonprofit, churches, organizations, we have to look at it and think differently now. What helped a year ago does not help now. And it will be a continuation of it, because we got to rethink this thing out, how to resolve it. We have to rethink how we could resources we can put out there and how quickly we can get them out there.
Hmm.
And I think that's where, if we start looking at that, it's good, the stats, the reports and how many is homeless, but we can't bite off that big old elephant. We got to bite it one bite at a time, and then eventually that elephant will disappear. But I think if we just start looking at doing things that can resolve issues quickly, I think that will put us in a better position next year or next month or 6 months down the road.
Thank you, Marcia. I really appreciate that perspective. And I feel like that sets us up perfectly for this conversation around, what can we do, and what are community-driven solutions that any of us can engage in, right? To begin taking one bite at a time, to use your words. So yeah, I'd love to maybe continue on this topic with you, Marcia, for a moment. Kevin's book talks about reclaiming our humanity as the first step in community-driven solutions. Sounds like that resonates.
Yes.
And this feels also central, right, to the work that you do and the approach that you have there at Mr. Bubble. So I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your organization and this motto that Kevin referenced earlier as well, the I see you and I care, and why you see this as important to addressing the issue.
Well, like I said, myself, I was in a position at a younger age, and growing up in the city that I was born and raised in, I saw people passing. And Kevin, I kind of snapshot your pitch, looking at your books, just to kind of get familiar where your thought pattern, where your direction coming from about the homeless. I agree with a lot of things you said. And one of the things is, if I quote you correctly, it says, seeing them, but not being a problem, but to a solution, but seeing them as people to be loved. And that's my thing, is loving on God's people. Because the Bible tells us the least of them, if you do for the least of them, you have done it unto me. You don't have to be a Bible scholar to know that God wants us to love one another as we love ourselves. And another scripture says about, if we see our brother and sisters, that means our homeless neighbors, may they be male, female, any race, nationality, belief, if you see them in need and you have been blessed and you close what they say, the Bible says, your vow to them, you don't have the love of God in you. We're not saying to save the world, but save that one person you come across. Say something nice to them, give them a hug. And that's what Mr. Bubble is all about, because we are in a position where we deal with human beings, not numbers. They still have dreams, they still have thoughts, they still have love in their hearts, they still cry, they still are saddened by their situation. Their humanity doesn't leave them because of their present condition. It's because situation happened in their life, a decision they made, and now they're in the end of that decision, may it be good or bad. And Mr. Bubble's motto is, I see you and I care, is that I see you. I see what you're going through. I see your heart is heavy. I see you. not your situation. I see you as a human being. And I want to let you know that I care about that. I care about the human being, not the number, not your circumstances, not your situation. And that's what we try to resonate to each and every one of our clients, because we're meeting them at a very vulnerable time in their life, and it's intimate. A shower? Come on, a shower? That's how intimate can you be with another human being outside of, the other end of that? But that's what Mr. Bubbles is all about. And our motto is I see you and I care. That's what's behind that statement.
Thank you. One person at a time, right? One bite at a time,
Yes.
as you were saying. Kevin and Kelly, I'd love to turn to each of you, and maybe we could start with you, Kelly, but both of your approaches very much uplift the individual voices and stories of unhoused individuals. I think very much aligned with what Marcia is talking about. And Kelly, Bomba spotlights stories through video on the website. And Kevin, you feature stories in your book. And so I'm wondering if you can each talk a little bit about conversations and considerations you made when thinking about how to best share the stories of these individuals publicly. And ultimately, how did you decide it was important to share their personal experiences as part of your broader work?
Thanks, Emily. When Bombas was working on a project to consider the ways that we could bring more information to our audience, which primarily would be our Bombas customers and those that see about Bombas on the internet, we thought we had an opportunity to share some insights that might help shift one's perspective around what homelessness is. Like all of our panelists are speaking to, often the idea of homelessness is met with so many long-held misconceptions and with a sense of stigma. And we wanted to help shift even just the tiniest bit someone's perspective from, oh, I know what that must be like, to a sense of curiosity, to a sense of wonder of why might someone be in a position. I think Marcia's example about the family that she saw at the bus stop is a really good example of that. It's, many passerby could look and feel like they know what brought someone to be in a position like that. But the hope is that someone might pause for a moment and think of it with a sense of curiosity and wonder, how did a family end up here? What did happen to them? What are they going through that puts them in this position? And maybe broaden their perspective about this massively intersectional issue that losing one's home is. And so that was the intention for this project, was sharing these insights. And the more that we were working on it, the more that we wanted to be able to incorporate the perspective of people who have had this experience firsthand. And I think it's always a fine line. I think we're always cautious about wanting certainly to provide a platform where one can speak about their experience and where that direct experience can translate to helping have someone better understand what this issue is all about, but also never wanting to be exploitative or put someone in a position where it feels like we're just really kind of putting them on the spot to further the telling of our own story. And so I think we're always very, very cautious there. And as we're working on the project, certainly I have a lot of close relationships with folks who have been unhoused or who are currently unhoused. And I approached it kind of delicately, but said, would you want to tell your story? And the resounding response from many people that I have a relationship was yes. And that they don't often have an opportunity to necessarily and to be able to share how complex the experience can be is certainly something we wanted to be able to highlight, knowing that all of these stories are so much more powerful than us sharing stats and figures and insights. Beautiful, complex, difficult stories that folks were inclined to share was a really wonderful part of working on this. And so ultimately, it was all people that we had come to know over the last number of years and had a prior relationship with. And some folks had a relationship even with one another. They had met through different programs. A few of the folks that were featured were part of Back on My Feet, which is an incredible national organization that helps people essentially get back on their feet through the discipline of running and through community support. And it's really beautiful and incredible. So that was really special to see a reunion of friends that had known each other over time and let everyone catch up. And so all of these things came through in the storytelling, which is what I think was so important to help, convey the different experiences here and hopefully, ultimately broaden someone's perspective.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, just a shout out if y'all don't know Bombas, they do incredible work. And having in my book talks, I often, when asked, what can I do to have a conversation? How do I engage? Handing out a pair of socks is just such a wonderful thing. And these socks are designed with like antimicrobial properties. Kelly recruits people from like NASA, I'm sure, to do this stuff. Like this is like stuff that, if you're out in the elements on your feet all the time, you have sores, it gets wet, you can get some really bad foot infections. And just having a conversation starter, let alone this incredible offering of a pair of socks. We often try to couple the socks with our hotline card. So our hotline is 1-800-MISS-YOU. And if you call 1-800-MISS-YOU, we help you reconnect to your loved ones or get matched with a phone buddy. And so we find that giving out the socks plus the card is great. So just a hat tip. If I had a hat on, I'd tip it. You asked about storytelling, maybe just to share a little bit about my story coming into this work. So 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I didn't know a thing about homelessness. I'd walk by, as my book title says, I saw people as problems, not as people on the streets. But I also had the good fortune of having an uncle who was a tremendous person in my family, remembered every birthday, guest of honor at Thanksgiving, Christmas, dear relative of mine, and he experienced homelessness for 30 years. He lived on and off the streets of Santa Cruz. But I never thought of Uncle Mark as a homeless man because he was just my beloved uncle, you know. And it wasn't until, I got that phone call when I was in college that, Uncle Mark had been found deceased at the age of 50 on the streets. That I just started thinking, gosh, everyone I'm walking by, that's someone's son or daughter, that's someone's brother or sister, or that's some kid's beloved uncle. And at that time, I didn't see people as people. Again, I had a kind of barrier in my own heart. And so I started just having conversations with my unhoused neighbors. I did it in a kind of unorthodox way, basically inviting people experiencing homelessness over the course of a year to wear GoPro cameras around their chests and narrate their experience of what life is like on the streets. And, the basic premise was simple. I just walked by you. You're still here. Like, what's it like to be you? What do you wish people like me knew that maybe we don't? And I watched dozens and dozens of hours of footage from these unhoused autobiographers who were sharing so courageously and kindly with me. And, a couple things stood out, and we can get more into this in the Q&A if folks are interested. But one quote in particular that really laid the groundwork for the work I've done over the last decade, one unhoused individual said, "I never realized I was homeless when I lost my housing, only when I lost my family and friends." And that was just this light bulb moment. And so I just thought, gosh, if that's true, maybe I can just walk down the street, go up to everyone I see who's visibly homeless and say, do you have any family or friends you'd like to reconnect to? And maybe some people will say yes. And so December 2014, a few days before Christmas, got some muffins or cookies, some biscuits, some water, I would have benefited from some socks. And I walked down Market Street and I went up to everyone I saw who was unhoused, said, hey, here's something I'd like to give you. Do you have any family or friends you'd like to reconnect to? And the first person I talked to was a man named Jeffrey. He said he hadn't seen his family in over 22 years. Sat down with him, said, would you like to record a message to your niece and nephew, your sister, your dad, these people you're telling me about? He said, yes. So I pull out my phone, I record a video, go on home. And that night, just for what it's worth, I didn't do anything. And then the next night I didn't do anything. And the night after that, because I didn't know if I could trust this guy. I didn't know if what he was sharing was like, is this going to dredge up all this bad stuff? What am I going to get involved with? Right. Like I started from a place of judgment. But after a few days, this video was like burning a hole in my pocket. And I said, I got to do something with it. So I get on Facebook, found a Facebook group connected to his hometown, posted the video there with a short note. And within 1 hour, the video went viral. It made the local news that night as the leading story. And classmates started commenting and said, hey, I went to high school with Jeffrey. I work in construction. Does he need a job?
Wow.
I work at the congressman's office. Does he need health care? And in the first 20 minutes of the post, his sister got tagged. We got on the phone the next day, and she told me that Jeffrey had been a missing person for 12 years. Broad daylight, downtown San Francisco, a few days before Christmas. And so for me, that was my miracle moment, because I quit my job. My dad's like, wait, what are you doing? And I said, I have to do this because Jeffrey's not the only one, and this shouldn't be happening. And over the last decade, what I found is I'm a big fan of some of the work that Brian Stevenson has done out of the Equal Justice Initiative. He talks about the importance of proximity, getting proximate. I actually think you have to go further. You have to get relational. And the closer we get to our unhoused neighbors, whether we find that there's a family reunification that could be beneficial, that they're isolated and can benefit from a friend to talk to, a phone buddy, or increasingly we say, gosh, this person, we trust them. There's a relationship there. They've had a hard time. Let's just give them money directly and find that, people use the money better than we could use it for them. But really it begins by getting proximate or getting relational. And I guarantee if you choose that path, if you haven't already done so, anything that you do to help, you will receive tenfold for yourself. I have benefited so much in my humanity and my empathy doing this work over the last decade. So.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing that very powerful story, and yours and the one of this other gentleman. It's a very powerful, I think, indication of what we're talking about, right? The potential, the hope behind these community-driven solutions, and what the community can do. And so thank you for sharing this particular approach. And I wonder, I mean, you shared several different thoughts there: proximity, relational, and I'd love to maybe take a moment to think about, because we have so many giving circles in this community and giving circle members on this call, to maybe think about specifically how giving circles might fit into this kind of evidence-based but people-first, community-driven solution approach. And this is an open question for all of you. Would love your thoughts. So I don't know, Kevin, if you want to just start, if there's anything more you want to add, and then we can
Sure.
maybe go to Marcia and then Kelly.
I'm happy to kick it off and would love to hear from Marcia and Kelly as well. So one of the chapters in my book is basically organized 3 sections. There's humanity shortcomings, system shortcomings, and then solutions. And it's roughly equal between the 3 parts. And in the humanity shortcomings, in I think chapter 4, is on paternalism. And I think it's really helpful to start with a framework of paternalism, because a lot of homeless services, not just, these other systems, but homeless services start from a place of kind of top down, assuming we know better than what you need for yourself and your family. It's one size fits all. If it's a shelter, most shelters in the Bay Area that I've been to, you have to be in by this time, out by that time. You can't bring your partner. You can't bring your kids. You can't bring your pet. You can't bring your stuff. If you're working, which 45% of people experiencing homelessness have jobs or some kind of employment, and another 40% are on disability, so can't work. But if you have some kind of work, you can't, change the hours. What are you going to do? Tell your employer, hey, I have to leave by this time. My homeless shelter needs me back by this time, right? So I just say that because I think giving circles and direct giving is really in contrast to the paternalism that's often in the sector. So what we did, just to share a little bit about our version of a giving circle at Miracle Messages, and we are excited to kind of find a way to, work more with Grapevine as well in your giving circles. But through the Phone Buddy program, we have volunteers all across the country, weekly phone calls, text messages, and we thought that that would be our final program at Miracle Messages. We do the storytelling, the narrative change, the reunion services, and the Phone Buddy program. But within a few months of the Phone Buddy program, we started hearing from our volunteers saying, hey, you've asked me to be friends with this person. You've asked us to be on a equal footing as friends. It's a relationship. How are you going to expect me to turn a blind eye when my friend, this person I love and trust, doesn't know what they're going to do to put food on the table tonight? Or they don't know how they're going to get gas in their car to get back to work on Monday. So at the least you can do is either we're going to give that person money, which you've asked us not to do, or you need to give them money. And so we decided to raise some money. We initially set a goal of $10,000. It ended up quickly becoming $50,000 because I think there was such a desire to be part of this direct giving around homelessness. We selected 14 individuals, all of whom had been nominated by their volunteer friends who are active in our Phone Buddy program. And we gave each person $500 a month for 6 months, no strings attached. 6 months later, 2/3 of the people who were unhoused when they got their first payment had secured stable housing. They used the money better than we could have used it for them. And those folks, to my knowledge, the people I've talked to recently, they're all still housed 2 years later. And it's remarkable. And so we've expanded our work now doing a $2.1 million randomized controlled trial where we're giving out $750 a month for 12 months all across the state of California to people experiencing homelessness directly. So the thing I'd want to emphasize is if you're part of a giving circle in the homelessness space, you are part of a sea change that is so critical and is so in contrast to, I think, what's the norm, which is really an assumption that if you're homeless, you did something wrong to deserve it, and making judgments and being paternalistic, giving people the investment that we'd want if, God forbid, we or one of our family members were experiencing homelessness, and embracing and trusting and empowering people. That's really, to me, what the Giving Circle model has to offer in the homelessness space. So.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, it's, I'll say we have giving circles. We see here at Grapevine giving circles focused on homelessness, but then also many others that support a broad range of causes, in particular locations. But homelessness is something that they're continuing to support throughout their work as part of their overall portfolio. So lots of ways people are getting involved in this movement already. Marcia, did you want to add to that?
All I want to say is the circle, and I was kind of visualizing a circle, and you have different sizes of circles within a circle sometimes. Yeah. And people see homelessness as a worldwide big, pool, and I can't swim, so I'm not jumping in. But the circle, if we join our hands and say, hey, Kevin, I'm here, I do this. If you hear about anyone that need a shower, connect them with me. And Kelly, thank you, Kelly, your company giving us the supplies to offer to the homeless, and going around so-and-so. We use the media, social media, for everything except connecting with what's happening in our community. And that saddens my heart. That platform is so huge. Why aren't we using it to find out information that's in our community? Just the other day, I was speaking with a group, and I pointed out that during the pandemic, there were so many wonderful grassroots nonprofits started up because of the needs, not just because to make money, but there's a lot of nonprofits that may be smaller in size, but doing very powerful things in the community. And the circle, Grapevine, your circles, you have circles everywhere. So you're connecting yourselves to another piece of the puzzle to become a solution for the homeless. But you can't bite the whole thing off. You got to take one bite at a time, or let's focus on one thing and be consistent with it. That's where anything you invest in, be consistent. And we're going to start this. Let's do it. You got to be big and grand about it. I didn't start big and grand. I saw a need. I prayed to God. He showed me things. People came together when I was sharing it with them. Like you say, Kevin, when you started your funding and you was only going for $10,000, but it turned out $50,000. Did you expect that to happen? No. In your mind, you thought, okay, $10,000, that's all I could do. That's true. That's all you could do. But look at all the people that invested in that. And you came up with at the end of the day, it was $50,000 sitting there. What you going to do with it? And you did something with it. And that's where I like to tell people, you don't have to be, it doesn't have a big thing. Just do something. Okay, we're going to collect clothes once a month, or collect clothes every 6 months. And we're going to find 3 organizations that provide clothing to the homeless. And you do it consistently. This is what we're going to do every quarter. So your members can see there is a commitment to that, and also see with the consistency, because we like consistency in our lives, and using social media to connect that circle with another circle in the city, in the state, wherever you may be. And that will bring us once again to a balance where everybody's doing something, not one person doing one big thing, but every little small circle connects, will bring a larger circle out, and a larger circle is created, and another larger is created. And that's how we should look at it now. Like I said, we have to change our thinking, how we're going to support our community. And that's the way I think we should start, is just knowing, look around. I don't know how much you know about the Bible, but one of the things Moses, you probably heard that story many times growing up, especially during Easter time and so forth. When Moses got to this large body of water, and he looked back and he had thousands of people that was following him. And he's like, Lord, what I'm going to do? How am I going to get these people across this water? And God told him, Moses, use what's in your hand. What's in your hand? And all he had was a rod, a stack in his hand, a stick, whatever you want to call it. And he said, reach it out. And Moses was obedient with just what he had in his hand. And all of us got a lot in our hands. Just see it, that it can be used for someone else's, to meet someone else's need.
Thank you, Marcia. Powerful. That idea of each circle connected to another one, and each bigger one, we often in the giving circle space, as we think about the power of collective impact, the ripple effects, right? And just starting small, but if you connect with one other person and then they connect with one other, how powerful that can become very quickly. Thank you. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
Well, I absolutely love everything Kevin and Marcia said. It's all so true. And I think 2 of the things that really stuck out to me that I often talk about and that we use as a principle at Bombas is consistency. So I love that. And we do often think about that radial impact that becomes possible when we are able to directly connect and do so on a consistent basis. And, that idea of starting small, we've always had a volunteer program at Bombas to just be as a way to have our internal team connect to our mission on a regular basis. And maybe when that started, it was 1 volunteer opportunity a month. And now we have between 12 and 15 every month for our team members to engage with. And all of those relationships that we've been able to build with other nonprofits, our giving partners, and with individuals who are facing housing insecurity has been so important as far as how it's influenced the way that we think about mission in our work, in our business, and how that influences the decisions that we're making. It becomes, and it's something that even though I've been close to it for so long, I'm still sort of never not in awe that as a for-profit company, certainly we could be making decisions in a different way, but it always comes down to how are we doing right by our community. And when we build these close relationships and, you know, when we're working directly in our own community on a regular basis, you can't turn that blind eye. Like Kevin said, you know, you have these friendships and relationships, and, you know, how are we going to make a decision that somehow is a disservice to someone that we're now friends with and have that relationship with? And so I think all of that learning was really helpful. And, you know, I think Bombas is just an example of one relatively small group of people who come together around a mission that we all believe in. And then the hope is that the things that we all learn and experience, we're talking to our friends about and our family members about, and, you know, we're helping to shift perspectives. And by building those relationships in an ongoing and consistent way, we're able to start to make that change, like everyone is saying. And I think with this community-based mindset, we can start to meet those paternal systems where they're at and challenge them and have more power behind us and say, like, we've seen it work a different way. And, you know, this is what we really need to impact change. And it's powerful. I mean, it's easy. I think it can be easy to get discouraged, but we're seeing again and again, which is so encouraging from our giving partners like Miracle Messages and Mr. Bubbles, the true impact that happens. And it matters to each individual that is impacted in a positive way.
That's great, Kelly. I love the framing too of Bombas as a community of people who have come together around a mission, right? Because you could ask, like, what role does the company play in a community-driven solution? But really, the company is its own community and is connected to all of these communities in so many ways. And so I'm just wondering, with all of the amazing work you've been doing, if you have any suggestions for other brands, other companies, on how they might, I don't know if replicate is the right word, because you're unique in what you're able to do, obviously, but, you know, get involved and make an impact in this space as well.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it would be beautiful for more companies and brands to be able to replicate in some way, but I think it's kind of looking inward and saying, you know, what do we have that we can offer? Certainly at Bombas, we were so lucky because this is why we were founded. It was a belief from our founders and our executive team, and, you know, we didn't have to do any convincing. So that's a beautiful thing that made it pretty easy on us. But for companies that maybe do need a little bit of convincing, the power of social good and finding a way to help give back, I think, I mean, one, you can point to just how important it is for employee engagement and retention and satisfaction. Being able to feel like your employer is doing something that matters and that the work that you're doing counts for just a little bit more than, you know, what it feels like day to day, I think is crucial and is something that's going to become ever more important, maybe even almost a requirement, which is encouraging, I think, as we keep moving forward. But I think it's just finding what it is that you can offer. There are so many different needs across different nonprofits. It doesn't have to be a physical product. It could be a service, lending one's time, lending a service to an organization that could really benefit from it. So it's just kind of thinking about what you have, what you can give, and trying to start small and offer it on a consistent basis.
Thanks, Kelly. And I'd love to, I have so many questions I'd love to get to, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to use the next 10 minutes that we have together. But maybe just one question to everyone, for each of you to take a moment to just share, like, how would you recommend to an individual that wants to get involved? I know we talked a little bit about the giving circle, but, you know, anything that you typically recommend to someone who's interested in getting started today or tomorrow, but you know, what do you recommend people do to get involved and try and help? So, Marcia, do you want to start us off?
I would suggest in your local area, I know here we have 211, which is a community resource line, to call it and see what's your interest. If it's homelessness or if it's food banks, things of that nature, they will be able to kind of get you started on different organizations that offers that. And I mean, working where I work at Metropolitan Ministry is a large organization. It's been around for over 50 something years, and it's evolving daily because of the need is changing in the community. But there is so many small ones, food banks, because Metropolitan offers food bank, we offer transitional housing for families. We do a lot, but there is individual organizations that has a food bank once a week, twice a week. They need help. For like Mr. Bubbles, I need help. I need help, not just volunteers out in the sites when we go out to provide the service, but in the back office, as they say. I'm older, I'll put it that way. And social media is not my gift. I need a social media person that you can, if you can, commit 5 or 10 hours a week, and if you are comfortable with that, please look me up. Please email me because I need help with social media. Social media to me, growing up, was the yellow pages or going to the library and looking through, books to find information. But the internet is such a big place and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. And I use it the best that I can. But if there's someone, you just have something that you do naturally. And it's not just physically going out, but just simply offering to design signs or design flyers for smaller nonprofit in your community and start from there. And then you get familiar with different other agencies. So when you have a neighbor or someone in your community or just in your family that may find themselves struggling financially to pay the rent, and guess what? Because you know that information, you can direct them to it, and that helps out our community ultimately.
Yeah. That's great, Marcia. Thank you. So anyone on the call, Marcia is looking for help with social media. Calling that out. If anyone is interested, we'll be sending information and follow up. And I also just want to welcome anyone in the chat too who's connected to a nonprofit to share a little bit more about it in the chat. And if you are looking for anything in particular, and we can share that all and follow up as well to everyone on the call. Yeah, Kevin, do you want to take this one next?
Sure, happy to. I'll keep it brief. Gosh, I'm tempted to apply for this social media internship with Marcia myself. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So at Miracle Messages, our mission is pretty simple. We say no one should go through homelessness alone, and no one should feel helpless on this issue. And the first part of that, I wish we could end it a word earlier, right? Like no one should go through homelessness. But while homelessness exists and we work to make it rare, brief, and non-recurring, it should not be a fundamentally isolating, otherizing experience. As our shirts say at Miracle Messages, everyone is someone's somebody. And so for us, it's really reminding ourselves that that's someone's son or daughter, brother or sister, or maybe some kid's beloved uncle. The second part of that mission statement, I think, is important here, that no one should feel helpless on this issue. Right now, I don't know about all of you, but if anyone here ever, scroll through the news or social media and then the minutes turn into an hour or two and you just like feel worse than you did when you started and you're like, what have I just spent this time doing? I do that. And I think one of the reasons I feel bad when I do that is I just feel like there's so much wrong in the world. There's so much brokenness, and I feel totally helpless. I just feel frustrated and a sense of like doom and overwhelming. I'm wanting to just share, if you take away nothing else from this conversation, homelessness is not one of those issues. Homelessness is not an issue that is going to be resolved by, outside forces and this government agency. Like it's going to require all of us, everyday people, making a difference. And there's very tangible things everyday people can get involved in on this issue that really change lives. If you want to be a phone buddy and volunteer with us 20 minutes, 30 minutes a week, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. We have volunteers in Europe, Asia, South America, Northern Africa, like wherever you're located, we'd love to have you if you have a phone, internet connection, cell connection, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a week. We'll match you with an unhoused friend, one-to-one, give you the training, the support, the community. If you want to be a digital detective, doing online searches, you know, making phone calls, writing letters, pretending you're part of like the FBI and doing investigative work, we can do that too. But, you know, if you're not even involving directly with us, this is an issue that by getting to know your neighbors, by showing up at a shelter, soup kitchen, by, you know, if you read my book, it's called When We Walk By. It's not called When We Never Walk By and we sit and talk to everybody. Like, we're going to walk by. But it's not about whether we walk by or not. It's about whether we take a moment to pause and think, well, gosh, did I walk by because I'm busy? I have places to be. I'm running late. I have to do this. Or did I kind of walk by because in that instance, I was afraid, or I felt uncomfortable or unsafe, or I was a little bit like, what's going on here? And then where did that come from? And is there a way I can proactively counteract that? Not do something that I don't feel comfortable with, but maybe show up on a Saturday with a friend, go into a high traffic public space, get a bunch of Bamba socks and hand out the socks with our hotline card, 1-800-MISS-YOU. So I think it's just taking a moment to really look in the mirror and reflect where we're at on this issue. You know, we all start from some place of kind of bias, and I continually find my own biases continue to uncover in this work. Like, no one's perfect on it, but everyone is needed to get involved. And so I would just invite folks to find a way to get involved locally, or if you would like, through Miracle Messages. So
Thank you, Kevin. Some great advice on getting involved. And I see some great ideas and people signing up and getting involved now, signing up for Miracle Messages and other things, sharing how they're involved. So keep sharing, please. Thank you for that. Kelly, over to you. Wrap us up.
I know we're at time, and I think what Marcia and Kevin shared were both really, really great. And as what I would reiterate as well, I think the easiest way is just getting involved with the folks that you might see on a regular basis that are seeking additional support, and just being able to start by acknowledging someone and help them feel seen is so impactful. And, you know, take it step by step. And if someone's open to having a conversation, building a relationship, there's so much that we learn from those interactions and relationships that can help kind of just create a little bit of momentum to have further impact. And maybe it is connecting with an organization that already exists in your community, or getting that group of people together. I'm just repeating, I think now, but reiterating, because I think those are truly the most meaningful ways to have that individual impact. And it goes such a long way, and you never know what's going to unfold.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Marcia, so much for being here with us and sharing such a powerful, uplifting, and encouraging conversation, I think, for how people can, you know, look, not always walk by, and actually do something, and giving them some really meaningful ways that they can do that. And I'd just like to welcome everyone here in the conversation to continue this conversation with your giving circles, if you're in them, or other communities of purpose that you're in, you know, and how you can come together and collaborate to be involved in this conversation and in this issue as well. So thank you all for joining us. I know we're at time, we're a little over. I had wanted to get to so many more questions. There's so much more we could dig in on here. So please do continue the conversation wherever possible. Please do continue to keep an eye out for future events from us here at Grapevine. We'll share all the information that was shared here in our follow-up email to everyone. And I look forward to seeing you at another event soon. Thanks all.
Thank you for
Bye.
joining, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.